Hello, I'm Richelle Harrison-Pless, and this is Encore. Coming up, we meet music maestro Daniel Barenboim, whose passion project, the West-Eastern Divan Orchestra, continues to unite Israelis and Palestinians through melody. The Louvre Museum in Paris launches a multi-million-euro campaign to score a rare Renaissance masterpiece, the prayer book of French King François I.
How long have you been in the FBI?
30 years.
That's a lot of information.
And he's the whistleblower who brought down the White House. A new film has Liam Neeson starring as Mark Felt, the FBI agent who helped uncover the Watergate scandal of 1974. Thanks for joining us. United through music, the West-Eastern Divan Orchestra gathers Israeli, Palestinian and other Arab musicians from across the Middle East, promoting peace, understanding and intercultural dialogue. At the helm is the renowned Argentinian-Israeli pianist and conductor Daniel Barenboim. We sat down with the maestro during his recent trip to Paris.
With a quick gesture, Daniel Barenboim corrects his musicians' mistakes. For the members of the East-West Divan Orchestra, working with him is the opportunity of a lifetime.
He's wonderful. We learn so much from him. He's very demanding, and he always demands the highest possible out of the orchestra.
He's disciplined and he's ambitious to what he does. He's so much passion. So it's a joy. It's a joy for me.
Discipline to achieve perfection, a quality Barenboim learnt from a young age with his father, a piano teacher. A prodigy, he gave his first concert at only 7 years old in Buenos Aires, where he spent his childhood. After Argentina, Europe. Barenboim learnt from the very best.
The first pianist that I met when I was very young, who influenced me a lot and was very generous with me, was Arthur Rubinstein. Afterwards, in Paris, when I was a student, I studied with Nadia Boulanger. And when I was 11, I met Wilhelm Furtwängler in Salzburg. He blew me away.
In 1975, he's named music director and conductor of the Paris Orchestra.
I have wonderfully fond, joyful memories of my years with the Paris Orchestra. I had so much fun with them. You always have more fun with Latin people.
Paris, Chicago, Berlin. Barenboim's career is truly international. Of Israeli citizenship, in 1991 he founds the East-Western Divan Orchestra, hoping to promote dialogue in the Middle East.
We can't play in Israel, nor in Arab countries. In Israel it's because politics are against this. And in Arab countries it's because they boycott anything that comes from Israel, no matter what people think.
In 2008, he symbolically acquired Palestinian citizenship. Today, Daniel Barenboim spends most of his time teaching, now that it's his turn to pass on knowledge.
It's a Renaissance masterpiece, a treasure from the French house of Valois. The Book of Hours, the prayer book of French King François I, is owned by collectors in Britain, but France wants it back. The rare volume is on temporary display at the Louvre in Paris, and the museum has launched a €10 million crowdfunding campaign to make it part of its permanent collection. Rebecca Rossman has more.
It's the fitting definition of a rare gem. Bound in gold and encrusted with ruby and turquoise jewels, the prayer book of French King François I, known as the Book of Hours, is a Renaissance-era heirloom that stayed in mint condition for more than 500 years.
The Book of François I is something of a miracle because the majority of the royal family's treasures from the Renaissance period were lost, but this piece has made it through the centuries.
While the Book of Hours was bought by English collectors in the 18th century, its London owner has now put it up for sale. Currently on temporary display at the Louvre, it will be made permanent if the museum can raise 10 million euros by next February. Already halfway there, thanks to a generous grant from a big French company, the Louvre has launched a crowdfunding campaign to raise the rest. The action group Tous Mécènes, or All Sponsors, which is overseeing part of the campaign, hopes to collect 1 million euros from the public. Previous successful campaigns have led to the museum's acquisition of works including the Three Graces, Love by sculptor Jacques Sally, and Tatien's Table. Tous Mécènes has also contributed to the restoration of one of the Louvre's most iconic pieces, Winged Victory of Samothrace.
Even if we give just a little bit, a part of these pieces then belong to us.
Already a quarter of the way there, the group has until February 15, 2018 to reach its €1 million target.
Paris's museums are a must-see for any visitor to the French capital, and right now a packed cultural calendar is luring massive crowds. From the popular Christian Dior exhibition to the Gauguin display at the Grand Palais and MoMA in Paris, the City of Light is pulling out all the stops. Alexander Orcott has more.
It's early in the morning, but already the crowds are out in force. The Louis Vuitton Foundation is showing famous pieces from New York's Museum of Modern Art.
We get to see 200 iconic artworks that have crossed the Atlantic, so we all want to see them.
New York's museum has come to France, and that doesn't happen every day.
Magnificent artworks like this Cézanne or this unusual Edward Hopper, painted in 1925, are all on show. Only the best-known paintings have been brought over, and that's pulling in some 5,000 people per day. And there are similar crowds at the Grand Palais for the Gauguin exhibition. Here also, record numbers of people have been turning up for many weeks. So what's causing it?
As the show is only on for a limited time, 3 months or so, clearly there is a bit of pressure, with people asking each other if they've seen it, or be careful because you could miss out. There's this kind of buzz around the event when it begins, and then it spreads through word of mouth and it becomes a must-see, something fashionable.
The queues outside the French capital's exhibitions speak for themselves. This one is for Christian Dior's 70th anniversary show. And this one is for the Yves Saint Laurent Museum, which opened last month.
People are coming out. There was a drop in numbers after the Paris attacks, but now museums are popular again.
The Yves Saint Laurent Museum has been finding it difficult to manage the massive influx of visitors.
We were up to 900 to 1,000 visitors per day, but we very recently decided to lower the numbers to make a more comfortable visit.
Last year, France's museums welcomed some 65 million visitors, and that number is quickly rising.
Mark Felt, the man who brought down the White House, is not the first film to tell the story of the FBI agent who helped uncover the Watergate scandal of 1974. In this latest outing, retelling this piece of juicy political history, Liam Neeson steps into the role of Felt, the whistleblower also known as Deep Throat.
No, I am not Deep Throat, and the only thing I can say is that I wouldn't be ashamed to be.
This is Mark Felt. In 1972, he was the #2 man in the FBI, but his alter ego had remained a mystery for some 30 years until he finally decided to tell his story in 2003. He is Deep Throat, the mole who helped 2 Washington Post journalists, Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, to lift the lid on one of the biggest political scandals in history, Watergate. It was named after the building complex where the Democratic Party headquarters was based. A foiled break-in there set off an FBI investigation that found that Republican President Richard Nixon was involved in illegal espionage and eventually led to his downfall.
No more interviews with White House people without permission. What? We put the investigation to bed in 2 days.
Despite pressure from the White House and the Secret Service, Mark Felt continued his investigation to shine a light on what was happening in the shadows of government.
The White House has no authority over the FBI. We can at all.
Relevance in today's world in the Trump administration is remarkable. But for the FBI to leak this information goes against their entire code. So Felt knew that he betrayed the FBI to save the FBI.
Felt was prepared to do anything to get the truth out in the open, no matter what the consequences. Portraying him, Liam Neeson says he was a difficult character to understand.
Is the president lying? They're all lying. This is an FBI man, born and bred. 30 years he had spent there. There was something charming about the man, but charming just up to a point. There was just something you couldn't quite read behind his eyes. Here's what we know.
It's a race against time between Mark Felt and the Oval Office that brings together political commentary and suspense.
There's a nickname for you at the paper. Deep Throat.
And finally, nearly 1 year ago, billionaire tycoon Donald Trump caused the biggest political upset in modern US history. A new documentary called 11/8/16 revisits Election Day last year, when Trump scored a surprise victory. It's the work of dozens of filmmakers who followed several voters from a variety of backgrounds and political leanings to give us a fascinating retelling of that historic day. We'll leave you with a clip. Remember, you can catch up with past Encore shows on our website and also stay in touch on social media. Keep it right here on France 24.
You can't stop doing politics. Knock on doors, say, hey, excuse me, did you vote today? Be polite. It's a beautiful day.
The election will be over by 9 o'clock. They'll call it by 9:30, and everything will be peaceful and wonderful. What if it goes the other way? What? It's not going to go the other way. No way. Mark it down.
It looks like maybe we should be planning for the too close to call scenario or the Trump win.
God shed his grace on thee from sea to shining sea.